man, I was right back into the addiction. That's how powerful it was. It's like, I mean, I know that I love my family. I know my dad loves me. I know our whole family loves each other, dude. But when it comes to the addiction, it's almost like, how could somebody love you like doing some shit like that and then going back out and getting loaded? I mean, so it's a hard pill to swallow for me. But so after that, you know, I still was getting loaded with this chick, and you know, I got so bad into shooting dope that I had collapsed all my veins, like collapsed them all. I mean, we were shooting up in my neck, my forehead, my feet, everywhere. And it got so bad I couldn't hit a vein. So I was just muscling it. I would just stick the needle in my butt but I started getting abscesses, and I got abscesses so bad that, I tried to get clean again. My cousin came and snatched me up and took me to a detox in Costa Mesa, and it was called Orange County Detox, and it was a medical detox. And my cousin showed up the pad. He's like, look, you're going to get clean. Like, you're done. And I fought him tooth and nail, but the only way he talked me into it was because it was a medical detox. So that was the worst part about kicking was, you know, I hated the come down. Like, you know, no sleeping, feeling like you're going to die. You know, you're not going to die. It just feels like you're going
Yeah.
to die. And I was in detox, and I remember we went to a meeting. Vision started going. I freaking was losing my vision, and I couldn't figure out why. I thought it was the Suboxone they were giving me. And they ended up taking me back to the house, and it got so bad where I was laying on my back, and I couldn't even like keep water down. Every time I take a drink of water, it just felt like it was going into my lungs. Like that flap in my throat was stopping, like not working anymore. So they ended up taking me to the hospital. They ended up finding out that I had botulism. I had gotten botulism from heroin, from the dirty heroin, just being in an abscess in my ass, you know. And I had never heard of botulism. I didn't know what the hell it was, you know. And then they tried to explain it to me, you know. It's like Botox, you know. It's just a bigger form of it, you know. I guess it attacks your nervous system and it shuts it down. Well, they had to fly in the antidote from the CDC, you know, and I'm thinking they just give it to you and then, you know, you're all better and you go, you know, you get out of the hospital. Well, that's not the case, man. I was in the hospital for 57 days. You know, I got down to 120 pounds. I was, you know, they had to put a colostomy bag in. I was on a feeding tube. I still got the trach scar. Like, that shit almost killed me. Did it stop me? No. You know, get out of the hospital. I'm trying to get out of the hospital because they couldn't find veins. They had put a PICC line in my arm, and they run it, and the tubes go to your heart, and that's how they administer the medication. Well, when I was getting out of the hospital, I tried to leave with it because I figured I could just put the syringe on there, and that's how I could shoot up. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess it's a felony. You know, Badger told me it's a felony if you try to leave the hospital with it. They didn't bust me like that with it, but they definitely stopped me from, you know, and in front of my parents. Like, I tried to play dumb, like, oh, I forgot about it. You know, I got these freaking cords hanging out of my arm, like I forgot. Parents ended up taking me back out to their house. I had open wounds on my ass, dude, from them cleaning out these abscesses. And
you still got scars?
Oh, dude. Hey, you know what? The crazy part about when I went to prison, the scariest part for me was having to strip down and bend over and cough, because right there in Wasco reception, you walk in and it's R&R, and there's cells all the way around the room, and with the desks in the middle, and everybody, I mean, there's 15 dudes in every cell, and you just got to sit there and get naked in front of all of them and bend over and cough. And I knew, like, the comments were going to start, you know, what happened to your ass, bro? Like, what the fuck, you know? A bunch of dudes talking shit, you know.
Did it happen?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. The cops mostly too. Because every time you go out for a visit, you're always getting naked in prison, you know. You're always bending over and coughing. And, you know, if there's a fight on the yard or a riot or, you know, something happens, they strip you out right there on the yard. They don't care, you know. They pulling pants down, dude, what the fuck happened to your ass, bro? And I started having fun with it. You know, I'd come up with like, oh, dude, I was rescuing this chick and this shark bit me in the ass, or, you know, I was on an African safari and this tiger chased me down. And,
Yeah.
so yeah, dude, I had these bandages on my ass, and my mom, dude, she's gangster as hell, man. For 6 months, dude, would just clean these wounds out, put these bandages on my ass, you know, and still had this colostomy bag, still, you know, fucking rocking
Do
the
you
cloth.
still have the colostomy bag?
No, so once the wounds healed, the whole reason they had the colostomy bag is because the wounds were on my butt. So if I, you know, took a shit, like it could get infected. So they kept I had to keep the colostomy bag the whole time the wounds were open until they finally healed. And then they went and reversed the colostomy bag, man. But shit, that was freaking painful getting that colostomy bag reversed, you know? I mean, out of all the shit, all the surgeries I had, that was probably the most painful. But yeah, so then did that stop me? No, back off and running, you know? My stepdad came in, he's like, look, you're killing your mom, man. I love you to death, but that woman's my number one, and she can't watch you sit here and kill yourself, or either can I. So I'll take you wherever you need to go, put $200 in your pocket, but you can't be here anymore. And, you know, I can't imagine how hard that was for him to do. You know, we still talk about it to this day. Like, I apologize because, I mean, putting them in that position to throw your son on the streets, but it had to be done. You know, I was going to learn any other way. I wasn't going to stop any other way. And that's what I did. I went back to the streets, went back to the whole pharmacy thing. And I had a buddy that was hooking up with this chick at the bank, and she was a teller. And so she told him, you know, their policy that they can't physically stop somebody that comes in with a note and demands money, you know, even if they don't have a gun, even if there's bulletproof glass in between them, they still have to give them the money. And so the spark went off in my head, and it was like, oh, and I remember what we talked about, like, you know, that merchant teller where they carry the big sums of cash, and normally that's what I do. But so on this day, I was loaded out of my mind. I had taken a bunch of Xanax, I probably had 2 to 3 gram heroin habit at the time. I was probably on 100 milligrams of methadone, popping Xanny bars because I was still hitting pharmacies. And I went to go do this bank, and the chick I was staying with, she wouldn't let me take her car. And so I walked up to the corner, and my buddy had this jewelry shop. And I went to the jewelry shop and asked him if I could borrow his car. And he was like, he saw how high I was, dude. And he was like, no, you can't borrow my car. Where are you going? And I was like, oh, I'm just running up the street to In-N-Out. And he's like, I'll take you. And I'm thinking in my head, like, shit. All right, you know. And I didn't tell him, you know. I didn't tell him, but I still was like, hey, can we stop by this Wells Fargo on the way? And right there on the 91 and the 55 freeway, there's a Wells Fargo. Now there's a Chick-fil-A in between, but there used to be a Wells Fargo and an In-N-Out across the parking lot. And we pulled in to the In-N-Out, and I told him, hey, I got to make a withdrawal from the bank real quick. You know, my people made a deposit for me. So I ran in there, did my thing. He was parked over in front of the In-N-Out at the time. I come out of the bank, and a spot had opened right in front of the bank, and he had pulled his car right in front of the bank. So I walked out, and I'm looking for him, and he's honking his horn like, Dino, hey, I'm over here. And I'm like, shit, dude. Manager's out front. We get in the car. And right when I get in the car, like, I see the manager, he sees me, and he turns around and walks back in. Well, we back out, and we still go over to In-N-Out across the parking lot because I didn't want to blow I was more worried about blowing my cover with my homeboy than getting caught by the cops, you know? That's how high I was. So at In-N-Out, you know, every In-N-Out in Southern California, the freaking drive-through is a mile long. And so we're in the drive-through, but by the time the cops got there, we were on the backside at the window, like paying. And so you could hear the sirens, the cops pulling in. And by the time we got our food and we're pulling out, cops are all gone, you know, and we just come pulling out right onto Tustin Boulevard and just start driving down Tustin Boulevard, like double in the hand, you know, just two goofy bastards just robbed a bank. And I remember a motorcycle cop came flying past us with his lights on. And I told my buddy, I was like, hey, just cut through this mall right here. You know, I had an apartment complex that I lived in with that chick right on the other side of the street. And we come pulling through the parking lot and we're getting ready to pull out. And I remember the cops just came swooping in on us and they were just, you know, driver with your left hand, reach over, you know, doing the whole thing. And he just looked over at me and he's like, you robbed that fucking bank, didn't you? And I just looked at him and I was like, yes, I did. And he's like, God damn it. And he's a big old fat Armenian dude, you know, and he started complaining of chest pains and shit. So they had to put him on a gurney and they put him in the ambulance. And detectives took me down to the Orange police station and they were interviewing me and asking me the whole get down. And I told him, you know, he didn't have any idea what happened, that I was robbing the bank. And they didn't believe me at first. Like they were like, dude, you're telling me like this guy didn't know that you were robbing a bank? Come on. And I was like, no, he had no idea. And they were like, well, if he didn't know, like, that's pretty fucked up that you let him drive you, you know?
Hence the reason why I always did crime alone.
Exactly.
Hence the reason why
Yeah.
I was always reluctant to give somebody a ride somewhere, especially if they're telling me they're going to the bank.
Yeah.
Or to a jewelry store. Or to a pharmacy. Or to a liquor store. You never know, you know what I mean?
Be aware of who's in your car.
No.
Especially if you're on parole or probation.
All that shit.
Yeah. So they ended up taking me down. But when I got busted that time, like, it was crazy. That first night in county jail, even though I knew like I was going to kick something fierce, you know, from the methadone, the heroin, the Xanax, like it was like a cloud of peace came over me, because it was like, okay, like I'm done. Like I know where I'm going now. You know, I know I'm going to prison. Like I know I'm not getting out of this one. All the other times, like, you know, my dad would pay for a lawyer, or my family would get an attorney, or I'd get drug rehab. You know, this time I knew I needed to go away. That was the only way I was going to stop. And I remember going, you know, back through the loop, went into Orange County, Maine again. And, you know, I was a white bander. They had me up in the dorms. And I forget what dorm it was, but, you know, I was up on my top rack and I was kicking bad at the time. And I remember this freaking white kid that had the bunk next to me took my shoes, you know, because I came in, they gave me some new ones, you know, those little orange slip-ons that they give you. And now I think they give you jellies, but or the slide-ins, but back then they had like these orange slip-ons.
Yeah, I remember those.
Little karate
shoes. I was in that jail back when they used to give us the bubble gums.
The bubble gums?
Yeah, the white look like low top Converse.
Yeah. Oh, Bob Barker's.
Yeah.
Things were kind of dope too. But yeah, so they had these little orange slip-ons and I had a new one, and the kid next to me there, because I couldn't even get up and go to chow. That's how bad I was. And this kid swapped his grimy ass shoes out for mine. And one of the cats saw him do it. And so when they got back from chow, I remember the dude that had the keys came over. He was like this old skinhead, came over and he told me, he's like, hey dude, you got to get off your rack and go to the bathroom. You and another guy are going to put tips on this dude. Like, he's a thief, you know, he stole your shoes. And I remember saying to him, like, well, can't somebody else do it? Like, I'm sick as hell, you know? And he was like, you're going to get off your rack right now. You know, he almost drugged me off my rack. But I ended up going back there. We ended up beating this kid up. And so I was in there for another couple days, and then they swapped me to the worker dorm. One of my cousins knew one of the sheriffs in there, and they pulled me out and pulled me in the worker dorm. And that worker dorm's where everyone wants to be, you know, like you're working in the kitchen and the phones are on all night. Like you get day room all day, and we're in there. And that's when I was going to court, you know, and ended up signing for 2 years, and they ended up taking me upstate, the old Greyhound, you know, up to Wasco. And I remember getting off that bus, and the first sign I saw was the no warning shots, you know. That's when you know you're not in Disneyland anymore, you know.
Oh, no, not at all.
So, but yeah, so I went to Wasco, and like I said, man, that getting in there into R&R, like that's the thing I was most nervous about. I wasn't even nervous about, I mean, I was nervous about going to prison, but I was more nervous about, you know, showing my ass in front of other men, you know, like, dude, these dudes are going to make fun of me. Like, you know, having all these thoughts, you know, and ended up, you know, you just get comfortable with it. You just own it, you know, and no one's in there because they're proud of themselves, you know, everyone's in there like, you know, so nobody cares. And I remember they transferred me over to A yard, and that's when they had put a white Crip on the yard, and I knew at some point they were gonna ask me to do something, and I just figured, like, what the hell, like, let's get this shit out of the way. They weren't talking about stabbing them, you know, so I raised my hand, you know. I thought, like, hey, dude, this will at least get me some high fives going to the back, or, you know, a little notoriety once I do land on the main line. And, you
What
know,
year is that?
this was 2009, 2010. Right at I think it was the end of 2009, beginning of 2010 on A yard, A1, no, A5, sorry. We're in A5, man, and we got this dude coming back into the building, coming back from chow. And, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, dude, this dude, he ended up cracking my celly with they give you those brown water mugs, like the Kool-Aid cups, you know, to put you take to chow with you.
Yeah.
And I remember walking, and he had his hands in they had the big denim jacket because it was cold. It's always cold out there. And he had his hands in his jacket, and he's walking across the day room. And I just remember right when my celly got to him, my celly's this big old skinhead, and right as he ran up on him, this dude just pulled out that cup and just wham, and just blasted him on the forehead and just dropped him, you know, split his forehead open. And you almost knocked him out. And, you know, 3 other of the homeboys came running in. Now there's 5 of us on this dude. You know, 5 dudes on one guy. You guys are doing more damage to each other than you're doing to him. But he ended up getting away from us. We caught him over by the podium, you know, put a beating on him. They ended up shooting a block gun. We all got sprayed in the face. And that's when, you know, they were going to take us to the hole. But they took us to another building, decontaminated us, and as they were bringing us back, they put us in our cells, and they had released the kitchen. They put the whole prison on lockdown, and then they were releasing the kitchen crew back. And as the kitchen crew was coming back, there were a couple of that white Crips homeboys on the kitchen crew, and a couple of black dudes, and there was probably about 10 or 12 black dudes on the kitchen crew, and probably 4 or 5 whites. And then right when they got in the building, man, they just rushed the whites, dude, and just started putting a whooping on them, man. And, you know, you're locked in your cell, and you feel helpless. And what's crazy though is we had some white boys, because it was so full at the time, they had some bunks that were out in the day room, and these dudes would sleep out in the day room, and there were some whites out there, and none of these dudes got off their rack and jumped in. And it was like, dude, they ended up putting us on lockdown for 2 months. And as soon as we came off lockdown, like, it was, you got a clean house, you know. And it's just like every time they'd open day room, yard, whatever, you know, it's always going down. And they knew it was coming. But
Did any of them dudes ever like run out of there and just check in, or what?
no, none of them did, though. I'll give them props on that. Like, none of them did. They knew it was coming, but they still, you know, they just kind of anticipated it. And then, you know, they didn't get stabbed or anything, but they got some nice beatings. But, you know, I mean, it's the whole part of prison, you know. And that was the thing that my uncle had told me before I went, you know, is, you know, don't develop a drug debt. Don't gamble. Don't be looking at anyone's cells, and keep your mouth shut and your eyes open, dude. And, you know, and if somebody challenges you or disrespects you, fight. Like, doesn't matter if he's the biggest dude and you get your ass whooped, like, fight. So I was already used to that anyways, by growing up in Clovis and Fresno. I wasn't always the toughest dude, and I don't claim to be the biggest badass in the world, but what I had going for me is I wasn't scared to fight the toughest dude, you know? And so sometimes that'll earn you more respect than actually winning the fight, you know, is fighting a dude that's twice your size. Or that was kind of my rule. Like I never fought anyone smaller than me, because they had everything to gain, I had everything to lose, you know. Like, so I would just end up fighting the bigger dudes, you know. That way your homeboys are like, man, I didn't think you were gonna win that one, or damn, I can't believe you fought that dude, you know. So in there it was the same. And I remember they had put this dude from Fresno, this guy named Grumpy, into my cell when after they had taken my cellie, and they put him on a different yard after that white crip. And he came in, and I'm a first termer, you know, and he started just taking advantage of me, dude, like taking my coffee, shooting it to his homeboys, like, you know, talking to me disrespectfully. And I didn't want to he had a big old bone crusher under his bed, man. And, you know, I just did not feel comfortable with this dude. He would say like way out shit, dude, talking about, you know, how him and his old cellie used to hook up. And, you know, but he would kind of try to say it like joking, but I didn't get that joking feel. I think he was like fishing, you know, to see. And every time he talked about it, I'd be up on my rack and I just get super uncomfortable. And then he'd get upset with me, you know, he'd like get pissed off, like, dude, I'm just fucking with you, man. Like, what are you getting? I'm like, dude, I don't know. You just, the way you say this shit, like, and so I got it in my head, dude, like, this dude says one more thing to me, like, it's game on. Like, I don't care. I don't care if he stabs me. I don't care if I stab him. I don't care. I just didn't want to get more time. I had already been in Wasco, dude. So after that white crip, I was in Wasco for almost 7 months, man. And I was just like, dude, I'm so sick of no family visits, no phone calls, you know, like barely getting yard, no TV in your cell, no job. It sucked, man. And so I didn't want to catch more time, but it got to the point, dude, where I was just like, I don't care, man. And he ended up saying some shit, and I came flying off the rack, and I got over by the toilet, because the toilet, you know, it's a little bit wider, you know, it doesn't have the bunk and the locker. And he was sitting on his rack, and he fucking looked over at me, and he's like, oh, like that? And I was like, yeah, like that, motherfucker. And he got up and came towards me, and he had his hands up, and I just bow for first punch, and just broke my hand right out of the gate, like, you know, on the first punch. And we just started getting it. And it's, you know, you fight in a cell, you know, it's loud as shit, especially when it's count time. Everyone up and down the tier can hear it. And they started whistling because the cops started walking. So we take a break, cops would walk by, and then we get back up. I mean, we went 3 rounds, man. And it felt like it was for an hour. It was probably, you know, 10, 15 minutes, not fighting the whole time, but in between, you know. And I remember getting done, and this fool just started crying, dude, like apologizing. Like, I'm sorry, man. I just wanted to see where your heart was, and this and that. You know, that next night I caught a bag. They had slid that bag underneath the door, and it said ISP, Ironwood State Prison. And thank God, man. You know, getting to the main line after being in reception that long, it's like Christmas, man. It's like you get there, you get a job, you know, you get yard 3 times a day. It's level 3, so it's all cell living, you know. And I stayed clean the whole time, you know, smoked a little weed, drank a little bit, but as far as the heroin, and heroin was prevalent on that yard, you know. I'd go to store, and I'd come walking back with my laundry bag full of store, and I get stopped 3 times on the way back to the building, you know. I got a $20 paper. I got, you know, but I always knew, I mean, I'd see how much heroin these guys were shooting. There wasn't enough heroin in that prison to get me loaded. Like, I'm a junkie, you know, like they would have been stabbing me, getting rid of me. Like I'd have had that whole yard flipped upside down with drama, you
Yeah.
know. But, yeah, it was the main, once I got to the main line, it was chill, man. You know, a couple gnarly fights. You know, saw a dude get his throat slit ear to ear, airlifted off the yard, you know. But after a while, you just kind of become numb to it, you know. It's kind of like you're just hoping they open yard back up. That's your first thought. Not if the dude's okay and gonna live. It's like, hey, hopefully they don't shut yard down, you know. And ended up, I had like 3 months to the pad, and they came and pulled me out of my cell, and ended up transferring me to Sentinella way down on the border by Mexico. And that's where, you know, I got to Sentinella, and it was on and cracking, and like it was active as all hell, you know. And
No, I've been to Centinela.
yeah, you know, and that was one of
I
the
was on the B yard and I was on the A yard.
yeah, I was on AR, and they and that prison was at when I was there, and I'm sure when were you there?
96.
Yeah, so I'm sure when you were there, it was like every yard was good. Um,
Yeah, there wasn't no real S and Y back then. I mean,
yeah,
you had like 1 yard in Mule Creek,
uh-huh,
and then you had like, I don't know, a couple other places, but yeah, it wasn't that shit. That S and Y shit didn't really start fucking taking shape until like the year 2000.
yeah, yeah. So Sentinella was on and cracking. They didn't have any SNY yards there. It was one, and especially 2009, 2010. Every prison had an SNY yard. The ones I was in, and they were transferring me out of Ironwood because the yard we were on was getting ready to get flipped to SNY. And I got into Sentinella, man, and yeah, it was on and cracking. Them white boys down there were active as fuck. You know, they were
A lot
I remember,
different.
yeah, they didn't care. You know, had a week. I was on S time, and you know, you go on S time, they pull your job and everything, and they run your name through the database, see if you got any active warrants or anything. And that's when I was tripping, man. Thought, you know, something's gonna come up. And I remember I had 4 days to the pad, and they came to my cell and wanted me to keep point on someone getting hit. And you know, you're just thinking like, damn, dude, like all it takes is, you know, one cop to see somebody get busted, you know, and now they're holding me. And you know, thank God they didn't. It was you know, they had hit this older cat for talking to Sully into swallowing some drugs out at visiting for a different race. He was a youngster from Orange County, and he was probably 21. And Sully was a junkie dirtbag, and he talked to Sully into bringing in some drugs for a different race out at visiting. And when he came back, it was like 3, 4, or 5 days had gone by, and he still hadn't shit it out. And the homies finally went to the dudes that had the keys, and they didn't know anything about it. And so the homeboys that had the keys were like, wait, what? And so they came over, and the kid finally ended up shitting the drugs out. But once that happened, the older dude that talked him into it, that was the cat that got hit, and he got stabbed up good. And I was sitting right there on that softball field, right on the bleachers. That was right where the whites kicked it on A yard. We kicked it right there on the bleachers by the softball field.
Them softball field bleachers is right by that main gate you walk into the yard
Yep.
from. Yep.
Yeah, right there.
Education, right? Educate, like the bleachers are right here. Education's right here. The program office right here. Medical. And then the gym is all the way down at the end.
Yeah, everything right there to the right, all the gym, and then all the buildings wrap around to the left. You know, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's, you know,
it was 5 building. Was it still the hole when you were there?
Yep.
Yeah.
5 still the hole. Yeah, it was. I mean, I actually liked the 3 yards just because it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't a 4 yard where everybody's hype out, you know, like you're on lockdown 80% of the time. I feel like the 3 yards got a lot of lifers that are, you know, trying to go to work and, you know, trying to program, but it's still cell living, you know? So at the end of the day, like once that door closes, like you can kick your shoes off and you only got your celly like to trip on. And if it's your homeboy, you know, like you can actually relax a little bit, as where anytime we're in the gym, you know, and you're sleeping with one eye open, and you know, you got different races next to you, and at any time it could pop off, you know, day or night. And at least in the cell living, like you feel like when that door closes, like you get a little bit of safety, a little bit of security. But yeah, the 3 yards were, and honestly, that was my favorite part of prison, was so at nighttime they'd do night yard, and they'd open up night yard, and I'd go out there, and then they'd do that first unlock, you know, right at like 7:45, and probably 90% of the yard would go in, but the lifers would sit out there for the next 45 minutes and spin laps, because there was no one out there. It was quiet, like out in the middle of the desert. And they wouldn't mess with too many people, but they would all talk to me, and I loved hearing their stories, you know. And they would threaten me, like, we ever see you back here, you know, we're gonna fuck you up, you know, and this isn't your spot, like you don't belong here, you need to go out there and make something of yourself, like we're stuck here for life, like you don't waste it, you know. And I remember that sticking with me. And you know, I got out of prison and was on the straight and narrow for a while. You know, I was drinking a little bit, but they had me on high control parole. And you know, they had me on it for 3 years, but my PO was cool, dude, like, because I wasn't giving him dirties, you know. Anytime he needed me, he called. Like,
What parole office were you out of?
I was out of Riverside, so it was out.
Oh, you were in Riverside, okay.
Yeah, I was out in the desert because I paroled to my parents, so I was out in It was Bermuda Dunes, is where the parole office was, right by the airport.
Yeah, I've been in every Orange County parole office except for the South County one. I think it was the one in, I don't know if it's Westminster or what. Costa Mesa or something. I was in Santa Ana. I was in Coronado, Via Burton.
Yeah,
all those.
You've done them all. And so, yeah, when I got out of prison, I was so stoked. It's like Christmas, you know. And I didn't care what I did, you know. I just wanted to get a job and start working. I had like a whole new outlook on life, and I remember going down to Lowe's and applying for a little part-time paint position. And I went in there like dressed up like I was the manager, you know. I had a tie on, like suit and everything. And they're thinking like, who's this dude coming in? You know, I was just trying to hide my tattoos and hope they didn't find out I'd been to prison. But, you know, I ended up going in and getting the job, and then, you know, got a promotion within 6 months, got a promotion to delivery manager 6 months after that. And then they ended up promoting me to a loss prevention manager. And so I ended up running the loss prevention for all the Lowe's out here in the valley, dude. And so that I don't think they knew, you know, I had just gotten out of prison a couple weeks before, you know, they gave me a job there. And now I'm in charge of, like, you know, trying to catch people stealing and shit. But I didn't last very long at that, because I was always the cat, you know. I catch you stealing something, you know, I'll give you a break. Like, hey, dude, like, just don't come back here, you know. Go up the street and steal, but this ain't the spot, you know.
Go steal from Home Depot, right?
Yeah, go across the street.
Yeah.
They got that.
So what do you do now?
So now I'm an electrician. You know, I fell off the wagon again after prison, but this time, I think it stuck, man. And I went to school to be, you know, an electrician, and ended up taking my my test, got my journeyman certification. So I just passed that probably about 6, 7, 8 months ago. And so now I'm a journeyman electrician. I'm in the process right now of getting my C10 license. I want to get my electrical contractor's license. So right now, dude, I'm setting goals for myself. That's what I need in life, is I got to have a goal to head towards. Because if I get stagnant, or, you know, I get mundane, like I'll fall off again, man. That idle time doesn't do well with me, you know, boredom, all that shit. Like I'm a bust when it comes to.
I feel you on that one.
Job and try to hold down the channel, and, you know, I'm sure you're a busy man, you know. A lot of these dudes out here, you know, they claim to be about it, but I think the about it ones are the ones that get up every day and are at work on, you know, 15 minutes early and busting their ass, and the last one to leave, and actually care about the job, you know, not just going there to, you know, just collect a paycheck. But I honestly am all about, like, for myself, what helps me sleep better at night is just having that, you know, my character, you know, and having that integrity of, you know, doing the right thing when no one's looking. You know, I just feel like if I'm still doing all that shady shit it doesn't matter if I'm clean and sober. If I'm still acting like a thug or a drug addict or a junkie, still stealing, lying, like that, you know, I'm gonna end up with that needle in my arm. And all it takes is, you know, one bad decision and I'm back off and running. And I know that the next time I go out and get loaded, like, I ain't coming back. I know it. I'm 42 years old now. Like, I don't have another run in me, you know. I don't.
So you got your own channel, right?
Yeah, I started, so I went on Josh's channel, and, you know, I wasn't thinking about doing a channel, but, you know, I had a lot of positive feedback, and I was, you know, kind of steering away from, I didn't want to just be known, like, you know, I didn't want to be known just as a prison channel. I kind of wanted to talk more about the recovery aspect and help, because I know a lot of people are still out there struggling. I mean, you think about it today, everybody's life has been touched one way or another by addiction, you know, whether it's you or your cousin or your mom or a friend of a friend or somebody you dated. Like, addiction's
Absolutely
prevalent, you know, and I just feel like if sharing my story can help, you know, one addict or, you know, somebody else, or, you know, do something, maybe like you said, you had talked to someone that, you know, talked them out of getting high, dude, like that right there, you don't know how powerful that is, JD, man. That it gave me goosebumps, like, when you told me that, honestly, because I've been there before, and I've been on the other side of that phone of calling somebody on my way to the connect and just being like, dude, just tell me not to go. Like, tell me, I don't even know how I got here. Like, it just, I was in a fog, and like the steering wheel just took me there, you know. But
yeah, I help people all the time with these kind of things. You know, I do a lot of that stuff on the strength, you know.
yeah, and that's when you can tell a real one.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because a lot,
I don't see why I should be charging somebody for saving their life, you know.
yeah, what, you don't want to be like Wes Watson?
Nah.
If real ones do it on the strength, honestly. I mean, and that takes a lot, because a lot of people are out here trying to do it for their own benefit. And, you know, that's where I'm at. You know, I'm not trying to ask anyone for money or trying to do anything that's gonna, you know, start a GoFundMe or anything like that. Like, I want to give my story across. And, you know, granted, I think we got like 500 subscribers, but like the feedback on it though is dope. Like, it's sick, man. And I really do feel like it's something about having, you know, 500 is not a lot, but 500 people from all over the world, you know, like the UK, from Florida to Seattle to Portland.
Yeah, that's the amazing part of it for me.
That's when it gets real, you know. That's when it really starts to hit home that you're touching somebody on another continent, brother.
So what's your channel called?
It's called Everybody Loves a Comeback.
So I'm gonna go subscribe to that. So I'm gonna let everybody know to go subscribe to your channel as well.
I appreciate it. And you know, I got a little bit of content on there. I got some interviews that I've done. I'm actually going down to Orange County tomorrow and interviewing a couple of my homeboys that are in recovery, and are, you know, a couple that have gone through the Charlie House, and they got some time under their belt, and they got some gnarly stories, you know. And I think that's the best part, is when you hear those stories of people being in the depths of addiction, because everybody's story is taking them somewhere different, but in the end, it's all the same, man. We're all trying to get, you know, just trying to get through this life without, you know, dying, to be honest.
Absolutely. So Everybody Loves a Comeback, right?
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to go ahead and close this one out and get it ready to bring it to print. So just so you guys know, I hope you've enjoyed Dean's story, man. It's or Dino, as he likes to be known as, aka the drugstore cowboy.
I like that one.
Yeah. Mr. In and Out of the bank, only to go to In and Out.
Double.
Yep. So you guys go over there and give Everybody Loves a Comeback, give it a subscribe, check it out. If you're definitely struggling with addiction, please reach out to somebody for help. There's a lot of us out here that'll be willing to give us some of our time to assist you and to keep you from going down that path to where somebody might be looking at your ass one day. Right? You knew it was coming, you know what I mean?
Hey, I'd be hurt if you
didn't. So we're going to go ahead and close this one out right here. You already know what it is, and you heard it right here. Prison Break Raw, uncut, uncensored, no holds barred, not sugarcoated, not politically correct, all up in your face, slapping them with that
dick of reality.
Dick of reality, and we out.